Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to One Hub Racing here for round number 10 of the championship. My name is, of course, Michael. I'm going to be taking you through the action here tonight in P2, and joining alongside me in the commentary box is the man, the myth, the legend, is Mr. Colin Mason. How are you doing, Cole?
Evening, Mike. Evening, all. Well, we've had our nice Easter break, and we are back ready for round 9 around Abu Dhabi, and it's dry, Mike. So I think that's a lot of drivers relieved, because it's not a track that they would have probably driven in the rain much at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you sure round 9? I'm positive it was round 10.
Do you know what? I think you're right. Yes, I clearly can't count. It is round 10.
I was about to say, one was wrong here. Which one was wrong? Oh, but yes, we are back, ladies and gentlemen, and what a track we go racing at here tonight. Of course, it is the Yas Marina circuit. We're here in Abu Dhabi for round number 10 of the championship. 28 laps, 21 corners, 13 to the left and 8 to the right. 2 DRS zones, 1 down the long straight heading into the turn 6, turn 7 chicane, and 1 from the exit of turn 8 all the way down to the sweeping left-hander at turn number 9 now, Cole. And it's going to provide a lot of overtaking opportunities, that is.
Yeah, definitely. This is. It used to be a really difficult track to overtake, I found, but over the last couple of years, it's a lot easier, especially with the new track layout. Which, Mike, I think I prefer. I don't know about yourself. I think a lot of the drivers prefer the newer layout rather than the old version.
So obviously,
Mike's not so sure.
no. So like in terms of like overtaking opportunities and that, yes, it is a lot better. But for me, I just always enjoyed like the switchbacks in the old chicanes, and as you know from back in the day,
Yeah.
I am a fan of them. But obviously, with the sweeping left-hander turn number 9 now, instead of that left right left chicane into another sharp left, you just got the one sweeping left-hander where you can really hold the momentum going around the outside, and that is going to be key for people that can get a good run out of that turn 7, where we're going to be seeing those who can get traction out of turn number 7 without hitting that inside sausage curve, they're going to be benefiting all the way down to turn 9.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's quite a long straight as well, isn't it? So there's plenty of good opportunities in the DRS and the toe to have a dabble then and have an attempt at a maneuver. But it's going to be quite a difficult race for them. Track limits around here is quite easy to get from experience. So that's something that the driver's got to be quite careful of, Mike. And we've never actually seen it happen in a real Formula One race. But that pit lane exit, you got to be careful because you could quite easily see yourself in the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, in qualifying as well, it's going to be interesting because in terms of coming out of the pit lane, you're coming out straight onto the exit of turn number 2 in towards turn number 3. And if someone is starting a lap, like, you kind of have to be really focusing on that track map to make sure that you are not going to be impeding someone as soon as you come out of the pits.
Yeah, because you could have a monumental accident as well. We've seen it in real Formula One in the past where I've seen drivers impede someone and it nearly ended up in an airplane crash. So you're dead right there, Mike. They're going to have to be very careful coming out of the pit lane onto their warm-up lap.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we head to the action in qualifying, let's have a quick reminder of the championship standings. It is Rich 500 leading the way. He's 21 points ahead of Jay Luke in second place. 131 points for Rich and 110 for Jay Luke. Joe currently in third on 96 points. 2 points ahead of Jess in fourth, with Funky in fifth on 87 points. 81 points for Salu in sixth. So a great second half of the season so far from Salu to get himself back up into the top 6. Quinn, after a fantastic start to the season, it's kind of patted out for him. He's now dropped down to 7th in the championship on 78 points. Papa Squanch up into 8th as well. He's on 70 points. Cowboy in 9th on 55 points. Then Jamie completing the top 10 on 52 points. But Cole, coming into tonight, obviously a 21-point lead for Rich. Well, it's not completely out of the obviously there's no chance that he can seal the championship here tonight. But if Jay Luke was to DNF and Rich was to get the race win with the fastest lap inside the top 10, then the amount of points remaining is the gap that he has to Jay Luke.
Yeah, exactly. So I think from Jay Luke's perspective, it is vital that he at least finishes ahead of Rich, even if Rich is directly behind him. But it's so important now for Jay Luke to make sure that he gains at least some ground on Rich. Rich is obviously going to be the happier of the two regarding the gap. But it's going to be so interesting to see these two Merc drivers fight. Will Rich be happy just to follow him home? That we'll have to wait and see, but it's going to be very important for Jay Luke to at least gain some points on him.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to jump over to the action right now in qualifying as we are on board with Jess, who's currently P4 in the championship, but she's coming around now to start her flying lap. The first lap of the session. Let's go on a full lap right here with Jess on the start finish straight, heading down in towards turn number 1. braking, throwing the car in 4th gear, using as much of the exit as you can as you run through turns number 2 now in towards the right-hander. Turn number 3, very easy to lose the back end through turn number 3 as well, Cole. But heading down now into the hairpin at turn number 5, where a few years ago, of course, we saw the infamous Verstappen dive on Hamilton to seal Verstappen's first World Drivers' Championship. But DRS wide open now for Jess, and a bit of a tow from the Mercedes up ahead, which is going to help her in terms of top end speed as we come down, braking into the chicane. And you see that extra bit of momentum, just Jess just go a little bit deep, so not the best in terms of the chicane for Jess, but she'll have another little bit of a long range tow on the run down now in towards turn number 9. Throwing the car through 53.3 middle sector, 5th gear there for Jess. And now we head into the very technical final sector, Colin, where it is so easy to lose a lot of time and very easy to pick up a track invalidation as well. A lot of just feathering the throttle through the final sector, but now coming through the penultimate corner, flat out 6th gear into the final braking zone at the final corner. And now to the line, and what's this going to be for Jess? It's going to be a 23.8 just behind J. Luke, and there's Mason there with a 23.3.
Where did that come from? Joe there up there with a 23.2 as well, so he's currently provisional pole. Great laps there from Joe and Mason. Very surprised to see the times that low this early in the session, Mike. So I think J. Luke and Jess won't be very happy with that at the minute.
And J. Luke especially won't be happy with that, because Rich has bumped himself up into 3rd place on a 23.5. Salu comes into the pits, not happy with his lap. He unfortunately hasn't validated his run. We got Leroy out there on a out lap right now, so we'll come back on board him in just a moment's time. Papa Squanch in the final sector, coming through towards the hotel section. And of course, Cole, I mean, this particular section, obviously underneath the hotel, is so difficult to get right and gain the most time, because it's all about feathering the throttle through some of those corners, and you have to get your line absolutely spot on. Papa Squanch onto the front row at 23.2, just behind Joe. But as I was saying, Cole, it's so crucial to get the right lines going through there, and feathering the throttle really does help with that. But we can see that is also incredibly easy just to pick up an invalidation.
Yeah, I think it's the part of the track where you could gain and lose the most time. It's a very technical section. Like you said, Mike, there's a lot of feathering of the throttle. And of course, if you're on a wheel, it's probably a bit easier for you with the pedals rather than the stick. So that section, you know, if you're on a wheel, I would say you've probably got an advantage over the controller players. But Papa Squanch there seemed to get that section very, very, very well, and that will put him provisionally on the front row.
Yeah, and in my opinion, Cole, obviously, just the whole dynamic of the track, as we got so there, Leroy there just carrying a bit too much speed, going a bit too deep into turn 14. But the whole dynamics of this track, obviously, getting the run through turn number 1, in my opinion, is the most important corner on the first sector. Getting the traction out of turn number 5 and out of turn number 7, out of the chicanes and the hairpin, is the most important thing to get right out of sector 2. When it comes to sector 3, there's that whole sequence of swooping through turn number 9. You've got turn number 12, 13, 14, and then of course the break-in for 16, which you have to get right. So in my opinion, sector 3 is where we're going to see like the difference between the drivers and our starter come out. It's going to be who can nail that sector.
Exactly that, Mike. Exactly that. And of course, that first corner is so easy to invalidate on the exit. So you want to, you know, carry as much speed through as you can, because, like you said, Mike, that means you're pretty much flat out then until the hairpin. And if you're too cautious, you're going to lose so much time. But if you're over ambitious, you're going to invalidate it. So it's going to be very, very difficult for the drivers, to be honest, to judge how hard to go for it. You know, the likes of, you know, Joe, Papa and Mason, they could maybe afford now to be a bit more aggressive, Mike.
Yeah, maybe, and we'll see you currently on board with Jamie, yet to get a lap time on the board, coming down in 16th place in the Papaya Orange McLaren, coming through the final corner now, Jamie met, and to the line he'll come, and it's a 23.8, puts him into the top 10, and he'll be happy with that. He was looking at trying to get into the 23s, and he's in the 23s, so he'll be happy with that, nice and early.
Yeah, that's... Yeah, I think you're dead right. I think James is going to be delighted with that now. He's already achieved his target for qualifying, really, so anything else now is just a bonus. But, Mike, that's another place that J. Luke and Jess have lost. They are right on the back end of the top 10, and neither driver wants to be there. We saw the standings before with Jess in fourth place, just a couple of points behind third place driver Joe. Joe on provisional pole, Jess down in 10th. Not what Jess wants at this stage.
Yeah, and Salaway popping up into P4. Looks like the Alpines are on fire here in Abu Dhabi as Rich drops himself down into 5th now. But let's have a little look and see what both J. Luke and Jess are going to be doing now for the middle sector. Jess on the run down now towards turn number 9. DRS wide open for the Red Bull, and 2 attempts up for Jess, taking a lot of that inside curve through turn number 9, and obviously Jess now starting to push and be a little bit more aggressive. J. Luke about a 10th up, so Jess currently has got a 10th on J. Luke, and that's not what J. Luke wants, because he does not want to be losing positions to not only Rich, but to Joe and Jess.
Yeah, that's going to be disastrous for him at this stage. Jess coming around the last corner. Isn't it improvement? Yes, it is. Up to 4th place, just behind Mason. What a lap from Jess. She'll be delighted with that. As Mason, look at that, a 23 lap for Mason, chucks it on provisional pole. He's already had 8 poles in his career, which I'm pretty certain is around 16th best out of the 400 odd drivers that One Hub have ever had. So Mason showing again that he's a bit of a qualifying expert, but Joe 22.8, Mike.
Yeah, and honestly, Cole, like in terms of the practice, from what I've seen from some of these guys earlier, Joe is definitely a strong candidate to get a big result here. Mason, in terms of qualifying pace, he's definitely going to be able to put a challenge in. For race pace, I think Joe has the edge in early stints, and I think later into a stint, maybe we start to see Mason begin to close that in. So it's all going to be about if Mason can stay with Joe, then for the latter stages of each stint to climb up the order. But J. Luke, he did improve by 2 tenths, and he's up in P10. He's behind everyone. You've got Rich now down to 7th, and you got Catherine out there on an outlap, and now you got Funky on an outlap. We're still waiting for a lap time coming from M125, who we know is a very good driver as well. Of course, was in P1 at the start of the season, but of course has dropped down to P2. And he is purple in the middle sector. I'm not sure if that's purple for the entire session or whether that's just purple for him. But we're going to see what the Sauber can do now, coming underneath the hotel for the final section. And M125 could really throw the cat amongst the pigeons here.
Yeah, let's see what he does. Comes out of the last corner. Crosses the line now and up into 5th, Mike. Up into 5th place. Another position drop for Rich and J. Luke. Just behind, and I mean just behind, Papa Squanch in 4th.
Yeah, and Leroy has just popped himself up into P3, so another position drop there for J. Luke. He is really not looking the J. Luke of old around this circuit, where, of course, throughout the course of the season, J. Luke has been incredibly pacey, but this might just be his Achilles heel, and this race by year, unless he can outscore Rich on pure race pace, he may be seeing his title hopes slip away.
Yeah, I mean, what a qualifying from Leroy. I mean, this is surely his his chance for his best result since, because he won. If I'm just going to check the standards a second, he did win round 1 at Imola, and it's all gone a bit pear-shaped for him since then. But what a time to bring it back up there in P3. Only 4/10 off pole, Mike, and time for another run as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Leroy and M125 will be very happy with the laps that they've just set. Of course, the first lap from Leroy may be a bit more of a cider lap, and then he's really started to push in the second lap. Of course, M125, that's his first lap time on the board, and he's put himself up into P6. Definitely going to be interesting. I'm currently on board with Funky coming through the penultimate corner, as I believe we just had Rageman join the lobby, and I think yeah, we had Rageman join the lobby just in time to get a lap on the board. And got Rich out there on the lap. He's about a 10th up, which doesn't sound like it's a lot, but that extra 10th could jump him up ahead of Jess. So it's a lot of positions that Rich could climb here if he's able to hold on to that 1/10 improvement that he's got in the sector.
Yeah, it's so tight, Mike. Any improvement's going to be quite a lot of positions. He comes around the line, bit of a wiggle, but moves it up into 6th place, just behind Catherine, splitting the Red Bulls.
Yeah, it is a Red Bull sandwich with a Rich 500 filling right now in P5, 6 and 7. And honestly, we got Salu out there on our lap right now. Of course, he's another strong driver here in P2, Cole, and going to be one climbing the order, I think, on this lap as he comes to the line. 3/10 improvement up to P3.
Wow, look at the Alpines there now, Mike, in 1st and 3rd. They're really having a great qualifying. Rage now in the lobby on his outlap. Great to see the guy back. Obviously, one of the One Hub admin as well. So great to see him back racing with us in One Hub, and let's see what he can manage. He's obviously, I know he's been a bit late because of the trains, so he's going to be a bit rusty, but let's see what he can do on his lap as we got 3 minutes to go, Mike.
Yeah, and I'm on board with JR Mason, 2/10 up in the middle sector, but I have a feeling that he might have just left himself a little bit short in terms of ERS deployment for the end of this lap, so we're going to see how it affects him as we come through the penultimate corner. He's probably going to run out of deployment as we exit, yep, just before the turn in for the final corner. To the line will come JR Mason, but it is an improvement by 4/10, and he's on provisional pole. It's a 22.6 from JR Mason. Will it be pole position number 9 for the McLaren, the Welshman, the qualifying merchant, some would say.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to know. I'd love to be able to get into his head on a qualifying session, because he always does brilliantly in qualifying. But Mike, I don't even think Mason, even with all his poles, would have expected to be 2/10 up with just a couple of minutes to go. So that's a lot to ask. Joe is on an outlap, same as Leroy. So it's not a foregone conclusion yet, but Mason putting himself exactly where he needs to be with 2 minutes on the clock to go.
And Carl, I just want to point something out as well. Obviously 2 minutes on the clock. J. Luke, he's just finished a lap time. He's got himself up in the P8 directly behind his teammate, which is good for him. But he has no more fuel to go for another run. He is out of fuel, and that's his qualifying session essentially over and done with.
So the best he's going to be is 8th. Yeah, you're dead right, Mark. He pulls into the pit lane. That is J. Luke's qualifying done, with everyone behind him pretty much on an lap. So he's going to be praying that no one else improves.
Yeah, and one man I'm going to keep an eye on to see if we are going to see any improvements from is the man who is on the front row at the moment, Joe in the Alpine, just getting his final lap underway. Coming down in towards turn number 1, braking, throwing the car in 4th gear, and upshifting the 5th on the exit. Little dab of the overtake, ERS deployment on the exit of turn number 1. Now, call ERS management on the qualifying lap very crucial. It's very easy to run out of deployment. We've seen it many times in the final sector, coming into the final corner, where the ERS deployment has completely gone. And you can lose it so easy by just having it on just a little bit too long on the run out of turn 5, and of course the run out of turn 7, and even as Joe was showing right there out of turn number 1.
Yeah, exactly that. Joe was just a tenth or just under a tenth slower than his previous best. So has he just saved his ERS a little bit better? Let's see what he's going to be like in Sector 2. Mikey's half a second down on his best. So that is, I'm pretty much certain, I think, is the end of Joe's qualifying. I can't see him improving, but you never know. He has saved a lot of his ERS, so is he going to be able to use it now and gain that time that he lost in the middle sector? Let's wait and see. He's coming round now, the penultimate corner, the flat-out right-hander. No, Mike, he's straight in the pit lane. He's done. That is Joe's qualifying finish. Salo didn't improve either, Mike.
Leroy up by about a 10 for the middle sector as he's coming through the penultimate corner. Now the Scuderia Ferrari, the race winner from round number 1 at Imola, coming through the final corner. Will it be a front row for Leroy? No, it won't, but it's P3 for now. Baba Squanch up by a 10th. We got Catherine in the final sector as well, but Jess is coming to the line. And Jess is about a 10th and a half down as Jess through the final corner. And what's it going to be for the Red Bull to the line? Jess doesn't improve. She's going to be starting from P12 at best. Catherine now coming through the final corner. And Catherine, P7. Will it be any improvement for Catherine? No, they won't. Papa Squanch to the line. And he improves up onto the front row. Papa Squanch, 4/10th improvement. Joins Mason on the front row. Rich on a lap. Rich up in the P4 as he jumps up massively. And now Geese on a invalid one. We got Cowboy to the line. Cowboy not going to find any improvements. I guess him up any positions. Rageman obviously on his cool down lap. And our call is qualifying over and done with. We've got JR Mason, 9th pole position in his one-hub career, and he does it at Abu Dhabi.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, last weekend we had a young Welsh girl, Ella, winning in the F1 Academy race. Can we get another Welsh winner, funny enough, Mike, in a McLaren?
Well, we will see, but that's waiting for the order. Is JR Mason on pole position? He'll be starting from the head of the field. Battle Squad will join him alongside in P2 with Joe in P3, Rich 500 in P4, with Leroy in P5, Salo in P6, with M125 P7, Catherine in P8, J Luke in P9, and Matthias running out the top 10. Outside the top 10, we got Jamie, Jess, Geese, Funky, Cowboy, Skrillex, Panda, and Rageman going to be starting from the back of the field in 18th place. Well,
now, Mike. Yes.
Incredible qualifying session right there from the drivers as it was JR Mason taking pole position, and what a way to do it.
Absolutely brilliant. He'll be absolutely chuffed with that, and quite shocked, Mike. He was confident going into this race with his qualifying pace, but I genuinely don't think he expected to get another pole. And we know that Mason struggles a little bit in the rain more than the other drivers, but Mike, it's dry, so it's the perfect condition for him. And not only that, Mike, he's down in 12th place in the championship. He's not really fighting for any championship positions, so he can afford to be a lot more aggressive than, the likes of Joe, who's trying to get into the top 3, Rich, obviously Jess, and obviously J Luke. So he's in a fantastic position in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you mentioned Joe and J Luke, and of course they were called in to the press room for the rivalries for this week. So we put the question to the pair of them saying, so guys, you're both very much in the hunt for the drivers' titles with 3 races left. What's it going to take for you to be able to challenge and steal the top spot? Joe responding saying, I think Rich would need to have a shocker in nearly all the races. He is in a very strong position. Will try my best and see what I can do though. Hopefully still finish in the top 3. J Luke saying it's going to take a lot of patience and consistencies. Podiums need to be a minimum each race, and outscoring both Rich and Joe enough to take it at Spa potentially. It's going to be difficult and honestly an entertaining final few races, I imagine. So, I mean, yes, I mean, both of them are saying that Rich is in a very strong position, but of course, not only have they got Rich to worry about, also Jess is only right there, right behind them. Jess can easily get herself involved in this.
Oh, big time. Yeah, Jess is in a lovely position, really. She knows that J. Luke behind is going to be desperate to overtake her to move forward, but she's really in a great position to cause a bit of havoc. And of course, her teammate Catherine up there can do her a world of help, challenging the likes of Rich and more specifically trying to get and take points off Joe.
Yep, and obviously another driver that we called into the press conference was, of course, M125 into the driver's press conference. And we put the question to him, welcome, last time out, you got your first podium. How relieved are you that that streak is over? And do you see yourself being able to replicate that result before the end of this season? M125 responded saying, I'm happy, but I don't think I will get a podium for the rest of the season. I think M125 might be just doubting himself a little bit, because we know how good of a driver he is. He can definitely pick himself up a podium in the final 3 races.
Without a shadow of a doubt, he's certainly got the pace. It's whether they, this is the key thing now. It's all about not making a mistake. When you get to this level of the championship, your form almost goes out the window. It's all about your bottle. How mentally tough are you to cope under the pressure? And it's difficult. It's a different type of thing. Maybe this is one of the reasons why Mason is doing so well now towards the end, is because there's no pressure on him, and he can just go for it.
Of course, once again, let's go back to the championship standings. Of course, we went for the top 10 earlier on. Now we're going to look at the drivers outside of the top 10. Of course, Leroy in 11th on 51 points. JR Mason, the man starting from pole position, in 12th on 38 points. Probib in 13th with Matthias in 14th. Catherine in 15th. M125 in 16th. Then, of course, we got Geist in 17th. Skrillex in 18th. Ghost, unfortunately, left the season in 19th. And then we have Rageman in 20th. Of course, going to be driving his first race of the season tonight. So he's going to be looking to get some points on the board nice and early. And then, of course, Anthony, Felix, James, and Kenzie all leaving throughout the season. And, of course, Trash Panda down in 25th on -3 points. But look at that, Darkle. I mean, as you mentioned about in terms of the bottle and everything, like some of the drivers that we have in the top 10 are in very good positions. M125, Catherine, Matthias, Mason, Leroy, all outside the top 10.
Yeah, exactly that. Is this the pressure getting to the drivers at the top of the field, Mike? You don't know. These drivers are all trying to fight for positions. I mean, the battle for third place is ridiculous as well. There's only 15 points between Joe in third and Salo in sixth. So, there's a lot of pressure on these drivers, Mike.
Absolutely. And of course, not only in terms of the drivers' championships, but we're also going to have a little look at the constructors' standards. Of course, Mercedes have been absolutely incredible over the course of the season. 246 points for them in the championship lead. But you have the Alpines, where, of course, Salu and Joe looking very strong here. They're second in the championship on 177. There's still enough time for Alpine to close down that gap to Mercedes, especially if the likes of J. Luke and Rich are going to be getting their elbows out against each other. Like, it's still possible for Alpine to close that gap and maybe sneak ahead and maybe clinch a constructor's title.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, where are they starting, first and third? That is perfect. If they can replicate that for the rest of the season, they will nick the constructors' championship. Now, are we going to see any? Are we going to see the two Alpine drivers work together a little bit to try and secure this constructors? That'll be interesting to see. Mike, we know for a fact that the Mercedes guys aren't going to be working together.
No, I think the Mercedes drivers now, their eyes are firmly stuck on the Drivers' Championship for right now. But this is going to be interesting as well, Cole. the battle for third in the constructors as well, because of course Jess has had to do a lot of some of the races and that so far this season by herself due to Catherine's issues with her wheel over the past couple of weeks. Catherine is now back, and the battle between Scuderia Ferrari and Red Bull Racing Team is gonna heat up, and potentially, like, are we gonna be seeing like a resurrection for Leroy and Quinn in the closing stages of this season, and of course with Catherine back helping out the Red Bull points tally? It's gonna be interesting, Cole.
It is going to be very interesting. Unfortunately, Quinn is not here tonight as well. So obviously, Leroy is the sole Ferrari trying to get some points. That's going to make a big difference, obviously. But Catherine, we know how good she is. We've seen the pace that she's had. She really could have easily won. I think it was Qatar, but unfortunately got a pit lane speeding penalty, which cost her the race victory. We know that she's got pace. We know she could race well. And Jess has been driving out of her skin at the minute, so there's a real chance that they can get the third place at the end of tonight. With the both drivers, I think Jess is starting 11th, 12th, just on the edge of the points. But it's not going to be long now, Mike, and we were able to find out. Is Mason going to get a good start? Is he going to lead into the first corner? How aggressive is J-Luke going to be on the first lap? He, I think 2 weeks ago, started lower down the order and had a great start. Can he replicate that? Is his race pace better than his quali pace? This is where you're going to have to wait and see and find out.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, looking at the rest of the constructors' standings, Aston Martin on 98 points. 8 points ahead of the RBs in 6th and the McLaren team in 7th. So only 8 points separating those three teams. Another very close battle in terms of the constructors. You've got Haas there on 70 points in 8th place. Sauber in 9th on 38. And then of course Williams in 10th on 34. And of course, before we head to the action out there on track again, a massive shout out to our partners and sponsors here at One Hub Racing, of course, to Next Level Racing, to Pure Sim Gear, as well as Vespatrin, and of course to Sim Grid as well, where we just saw the fantastic standards, and last but not least, the Mental Health Foundation. And Cole, the drivers out there now are looking at their strategy lineups. They are looking to see what they're going to be able to do in the action here tonight. Now, obviously, a former driver here in One Hub as yourself, you have driven many races around this circuit in Abu Dhabi. What is the mentality going to be for you at the start of this race?
I gotta be honest, I always used to be quite aggressive going into the first corner here. You can gain a lot of places. But if you're on the outside, you gotta be really careful of a guy on the inside just slightly outbraking himself, and then you'll disappear it off. But you can't be too cautious on a corner like that at the start of the race, because you could end up in more trouble than if you went in aggressive. So it's all about what position are you in. If I was in J-Luke's position, I'd be going for it and seeing how many places I can gain. If I'm rich, I'm going to be a little bit more cautious.
Well, we're going to have to see how that is all going to play out. Of course, in terms of the constructors' standings, of which you was talking about, 8 points separating Aston Martin, RB, and the McLaren team. Of course, a very close battle between those three constructors, Carl. Who is your money on to come out on top of those three?
I'm actually going to go the McLaren. I think I know that Jamie is lightning around Miami as well. And I know he's very much looking forward to that track. And I genuinely believe that Mason's found a bit more confidence now as well, proven by his pole position. So I think I'm going to go for the McLaren boys out of that battle. But you can never tell, Mike. It's so easy, One little drive-through penalty for speeding into the safety car, and your race is pretty much done. So it's all going to be how many mistakes the guys don't make, really.
Yeah, absolutely. As the drivers out there now on the formation lap call and looking at the selection of the tyres, I'm not surprised to see the majority of the field on the set of the mediums, but you've got Leroy on a set of softs and Geese on a set of hard compound tyres. They're the only two that have gone a little bit alternative to the rest of the field.
Yeah, I would say this race here, Mike, is probably regarding strategy, the most similar throughout the grid. We've had so many different strategies over the last couple of races from the drivers, starting on different tyres, but only two drivers selecting to go onto the, or not onto the mediums. Yes, on the hards, he's going to find it very difficult those first couple of laps, Mike, but the race will come back to him. Leroy there in fifth, he's going to have some tremendous pace at the start, but the tyres will go off a lot quicker.
Absolutely, and for Leroy, it's a case of he has to get a brilliant start, climb up to the front of the field, and just kind of get towed for like a lap or two with DRS, and then come into the pits, get a fresh set of tyres on, get a nice undercut on the rest of the field, and then he's got a decent gap then to work with for the rest of the race. For Geese, it's all about staying with the guys in front of him. Yeah, obviously the hard tyres, they're going to be a difficult tyre to get up to temperature at the start of the race, and of course, making contact with Jess on the formation lap is not the best way to get your tyres up to temperature, as you know, and they're going to be starting a little bit further behind the optimal pit box position as well. But looking at some of the pre-race interviews called before we head to the action on the track, Catherine talking about what's called the break week and everything, and how she feels going into the final couple of races. Catherine saying was a bit frustrated that missed a couple of races because her wheel was broken, but glad to be back this week. And of course, she's starting from P8, but let's see what goes on. Cole, I'm going to let you take us away to the 5 red lights.
And here we are, Mason on pole, 5 red lights. They are go, and they are racing. Look at the angle that Papa had. Mason gets a good getaway. Is he going to lead into the first corner? Yes, he does, but he's been hit by Papa. Papa Squadge loses out. He's got Joe all the way around, and look how close it is around the outside. Papa Squadge just staying in second. Mason with the perfect start in as he leads, going into the hairpin.
Yeah, Leroy on those soft tyres as well, getting himself up into P3, but still under pressure from Joe, who is trying to battle for that final podium position at the time being. Salu tucked right underneath the rear wing of M125. In behind, you're seeing Catherine and J-Luke. J-Luke trying to outbrake Salu around the outside at the chicane. This will be brilliant if J-Luke can pull it off, and I think he may have just slightly compromised Catherine there. Catherine getting absolutely swamped now on the exit. And the Red Bull teammates are line astern in 11th and 12th.
Yeah, Catherine's had an shocker of a start now. Down in 8th. J-Luke up into 8th place. Crucially, Rich in that 5th position. Leroy up into 3rd place, showing great pace on those soft tyres. Mason still in the lead at the moment. Sideways, just about catches it, but now he's under pressure from Joe.
Yeah, Joe will know in a few laps time he'll have the tyre advantage, so it's not going to be a big deal for Joe right now. The biggest deal for Joe is if Leroy drops outside that 1 second window with the top two. It's like around about 7 tenths of a second right now, Cole, and that is coming into effect because of the sliding that we just seen from Leroy. Leroy needs to get good traction out of these corners if he wants to stay within DRS range.
Yeah, exactly. That is so important. He's just about in it at the minute. But look at Joe behind him. DRS now enabled. Joe, he's going to look down the inside and lead. Is he going to have the top speed? Might it's already done. Maneuver done. Joe up into 3rd place.
And that's an important move for Joe to make in this race because he had to get past Leroy to obviously make sure that he does not lose touch with the top two. And now in behind Rich is the next man to try and carve his way for the field. But look at that, J-Luke around the outside. Oh, Salu runs too deep though, does J-Luke. That allows Salu to come back, but the traction around the outside there for J-Luke propels him up into P7. The Mercedes is cutting his way through the field, And maybe the case of his race pace is actually better than his qualifying pace, maybe coming to fruition, but he has had to use an awful lot of DRS, and now Leroy is outside of DRS range on the top 3.
Yeah, so Leroy's going to be under huge pressure from Rich behind him. J-Luke with a great manoeuvre now, up into 7th place. Mason still in the lead, but look at the gap, Mike. It's only a couple of tenths. Is Papa Squanch going to have a great run down the back straight with his DRS wide open? Leroy just outside the DRS.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, Cole, of course. Last time we went racing here at Abu Dhabi, Papa Squanch was the race winner here. Last time that we came racing in Abu Dhabi, of course, I was in the old P3 tier. Now, of course, this is P2. It's a whole different kettle of fish, as Rich is now up into P4. No change going on in the top 3, but it is all going to be about the traction that these guys can get. And it looks like J.L. Mason has got himself a good bit of traction, but here comes the DRS. Here comes the ERS burn from Papa Squanch. Down the inside, in towards turn number 9, goes the Haas into the race lead now, Papa Squanch.
Yeah, lovely move from Papa Squanch there. You could see that he timed it to perfection. Mason still just behind him as Trash Panda is out. Is this going to be a safety car? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I'm expecting, Mike, to see all these drivers rush in the pit lane. Leroy is in a very good position now because he can get rid of those soft tyres. How many drivers are we going to see come in the pit lane? Let's wait and see. Papa Squanch is in. Mason is in.
Joe is in.
So is Joe, yeah. Bunch of cars coming in the pit lane.
And this is where this is going to hurt J-Luke.
Yeah.
Should have backed off a little bit more to his teammates. He's going to get held up now by Rich in the pit lane, because you can see right there, he's got a double stack, and he's going to hemorrhage positions now. Is J-Luke, and further down the order, he is going to fall.
Yes. So Matthias and Guest are staying out, Mike. So Papa Squanch is going to come out in 3rd place. Mason behind him. So how far? And J-Luke is down to 11th. Mike, you were dead right. Him getting stuck behind his teammate Rich there with the safety car did him no favours at all.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been jumped by M125. He's been jumped by Jess. He's been jumped by Salu. And he was fortunate to not get jumped by Jamie in behind as well, because it was quite close for them to on the pit lane exit as well. So, yeah, J-Luke just suffering a little bit with the double stack. Should have backed off a little bit more just to make sure that he had a little bit of time to lose as little as possible. Catherine, another one that's been affected with the double stack. She's down in 15th place now. But, Cole, I'm actually just... Is there front wing damage on Catherine's car? I think she's missing the front left end plate. She is.
Well spotted. Eagle Eye Mike has spotted it. Yeah, you're dead right. Left end plate is no more. Now, I was looking at the chat like with Catherine. She said she picked the wrong allocation. Now, does that mean that she's not got 2 sets of mediums and only got the one? Meaning that she's going to have to do a double hard stint. That we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's not a track, Mike, that you want front wing damage. I'm surprised she didn't get it changed during the pit lane, unless it happened outside. We got another driver coming in the pit lane. Rage gets a drive-through penalty for ignoring yellow flags. So what he did was he overtook the drivers coming into the pit lane. I think that's what happened there. But Rage gonna get his 2nd pit stop out of the way. Can you make it? What's he putting on? He's putting and a new front wing, not on a set of medium. So he's going to have to box again, but he should be able to catch the pack up.
Now here's the question, Cole. And obviously this is a question. See, in terms of the race as it unfolds, do you try to get 2 pit stops out of the way here, or would you say it is way too early to think about the 2 stops right here, right now?
Oh, that's a difficult one. To be honest, if I was further at the back of the grid and I wasn't confident with my race pace, I'd definitely give it a go. But if I was J. Luke, Rich, Jess, Joe fighting for these championship positions, I think it's too early. You know, if another safety car comes out, then you're in deep trouble. And it is one of those tracks where it's quite easy to get a safety car. We're only 5 laps in, and the safety car, Mike, is going to be coming in this lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Matthias is going to be the virtual Burt Mulder, going to be setting the pace on the safety car restart. So the RB is going to be leading the Sauber in behind, and then we got the fresh runners. Papa Squanch on the set in the medium, so going a little bit different to the likes of Mason and Joe in behind. Rich on the set in the mediums as well. Now, of course, what this all mean, Cole, is Rich and Papa Squanch will have the early advantage in terms of the grip and the pace of the mediums, but if they can't drop the hard tyres, the hards are going to come completely back into their own after around about 5-6 laps.
Yeah, exactly that. It's going to be very interesting to see what pace Matthias has as well. Can he pull away? As the drivers are now racing, they are off they go. They head into turn 1. Mason got a bit dropped by Papa Squanch there. Didn't get the best of restarts with Joe right behind him now as they head around the very fast left-right. And look at Papa Squanch already hounding Geest. Has he got him? No. Still behind him, but Mason there causing a bit of a train behind him. Joe right on his rear wing.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe on the rear, and Mason floating around that 1 second behind Papa Squanch. Papa Squanch, though, needs to dispatch Geese, and Geese has actually had some a little bit of a lag going on right there, because he has lagged back inside of Papa Squanch, and he's lagging again. Geese and the driver's going to have to be very cautious of Geese here with that lag issue.
Yeah, it's very distracting for a driver when you've got a car jumping around. He seems to have sorted himself out, but he is struggling, dropping back through the field. Rich now up into 5th place. Leroy passes Geese now up into 6th.
And then 125 clean around the outside of Geese as well. As you got Jess and J. Luke, the next 2 cars to try and overtake the Sauber in behind. And this is going to be important for not only Jess but for J. Luke as well, to get this move done on Geese as quickly as possible, because he is on older tyres, so they have to get that move done ASAP. And for Mason right now, that little bit of distraction might have just cost him the chance of sticking on the back of Papa Squanch, because Papa Squanch is going to get through on Matthias now with DRS, and he's going to be gone.
Yes, but looking at that last couple of corners, Mason did manage to close it a little bit, but look at Papa Squanch right on the back of Matthias. 3-lap under tyres. Is he going to have a go down the inside? No, he thinks better of it. Is he going to have a go now, Mike? Heading down here. Oh, bit of opposite lock from Matthias. Not the best run, but look at Papa Squanch round the outside, clean round the outside. And Papa Squanch up into the lead.
Yeah, and Mason didn't get the best of run out of turn 7, so that's allowed Joe to get through. Both of them did manage to get DRS, by the way, so they did just sneak within DRS range of Papa Squanch, but it wasn't enough for them to get a move done on Matthias. This will happen surely down the long straight on the run in towards turn 6 on the following lap, but Papa Squanch might be out of DRS range, so that means, Cole, that we need to see a little bit of teamwork from Joe and Mason if they want to get themselves right onto the rear of Papa Squanch. They're going to have to DRS trade with each other.
Yes, I think that's the best source of action, as Papa Squanch, he had a bit of lag then. I'm hoping he doesn't have any disconnection issues. He's been very unfortunate a couple of races this season where his connection has dropped, but he seems to be doing okay at the minute. Matthias still in 2nd place. I've noticed that Jamie is down in 14th. He was fighting with J. Luke at one stage. I don't know whether they've come together, or whether Jamie's dropped it on his own, but he's down the field. Joe up into 2nd place, Mike.
Yeah, and Mason too far back to really follow Joe through, and that's going to allow Matthias to be able to hold on to DRS and defend from Mason down in towards turn number 9, and being stuck behind Matthias in the final sector is not what Mason is going to want to deal with. That is for sure, and you can see the gap now, 1.2 between Joe and Papa Squanch here, and the final sector is where we're going to see if Joe has the pace to get himself back in the DRS range on Papa Squanch, because you can see it's floating around the 1 second to 1.2 second. J. Luke, a 3 second time penalty. That is not going to help his cause. His teammates up in P5, the championship leader, Rich 500, in P5 on the back of JR Mason. And he just picked himself up a 3 second time penalty. And following in the rear wing of 125 up ahead.
Yeah, as Joe sets the fastest lap of the race on the hard tyres. A little bit of help at DRS, but he is motoring on. Oh!
Big rear end moment. I'm not sure if there was contact there with himself and Mason, or whether he just absolutely lost it. It's at one of those corners where you can lose it. We just caught the end of the slide. But yeah, Matthias there dropping all the way down to P9 on the back of Jess now. But look at the ERS battery. He's got absolutely nothing here to defend, to really attack or defend us. We've got Mason and Rich battling out for the chicane. And this is look at that. Side by side, that's allowed Leroy and then 125 to go through. And look at that now, J. Luke's ahead of Rich.
What a chain of events that, with J. Luke getting ahead of as he was fighting with Mason. Absolutely tremendous racing. Very, very hard racing from the Mercedes and the McLaren drivers. But Mike, with that 3 second penalty, that could be huge for J. Luke.
It absolutely could, Colin. Obviously, for J. Luke, he is going to be hoping that he can not lose so much time on the undercut when Rich comes in and makes his pit stop to go on a set of hard tyres. And he'll have the medium tyres, which he'll hope will have enough grip and enough longevity to get the move done and pull a gap that he needs. But we're going to have to wait and see how that will all unfold. And you never know, Rich could maybe pick himself up a 3 second at some point in this race as well. But that little squabble between Rich and JR Mason through the chicane, neither of them wanted to yield the position call, and it's cost the pair of them massively.
It has cost them quite a lot. But Mason now, right on the DRS of M125. Is he going to have enough to have a go? I don't think so. No, he's not quite close enough. But look at Joe there up. He is slowly but surely bringing in Papa Squanch. Now, Papa Squanch on his 6-lap-old mediums. Are they going to be starting to suffer, Mike?
Oh, here comes J. Luke down the inside of JR Mason, down the inside of turn number 9. Job done for the Mercedes driver, but Mason trying to get the traction on the exit, but he just cannot find the traction. And this is right here, Cole, is what J. Luke needs to do. He needs to make the best of these hard tyres now, because as you mentioned, these mediums, they are starting to peter out versus the hards, and it's not going to be too much longer before the hards are the better tyre. And you're going to see Joe creep in on Papa Squanch within the next 2 laps, and you're going to see Rich begin to struggle and maybe fall away after that. But Rich has managed to get himself through on Mason as well, and Mason, I'm not sure what's happened there, if Rich maybe got close enough to send one into the final corner, or if Mason's having a real issue out there on track. But in this middle stint, he's definitely falling away, and that's a safety car, lap 11. And what this does is it absolutely puts the race in favour of Papa Squanch, Rich, Jess and Cowboy.
Yes, it certainly does. Now, what are the drivers on the hard tyres going to do, Mike? Mike, what would you do? Would you stay out? I mean, it's perfect for the medium runners because they can chuck on a set of hard tyres and go to the end, I would have thought. I don't think they get 2 sets of hards, do they, Mike? I can't remember, to be honest.
I think it depends what strategy you go for in terms of the tyre selection. I think you can get 2 sets of hards. I might be wrong, but I think it is possible we can get 2 sets of hards. But this is now just turned very interesting, Cole. Because as we mentioned with Papa Squanch having to try and break away, now it's going to be on the likes of Joe, Leroy, M125 and Jay Luke to try and break away. And they are, well, actually M125 and Jay Luke staying out. Rich is coming into the pits. He's backed off quite considerably, expecting his teammate to double stack. And obviously that has not been the case. So he potentially might have put himself at a little bit more risk of being held up by cars coming through the pit lane as he's about to try and leave it. So he might have just done himself over just a little bit, but we'll see as he is going to come out in P10. Leroy is going for a set of the medium compound tyres.
Oh, that's interesting. Will the mediums last 17 laps? That's going to be a bit of a struggle towards the end, Mike. But if we look through the drivers now who have completed their 2 stops. So the first driver, Papa Squanch in 7th, he's completed 2 stops. Leroy in 9th, he's completed 2 stops. Same with Rich, same with Jess, same with Cowboy, same with Sallow, Catherine as well. So all those drivers do not need to stop again, and they're going to be right on the back of the pack before this safety car comes in. So they're sitting in a great position at the minute, Mike.
Absolutely, and of course in terms of how the race is going to be unfolding, for the likes of Leroy and Salou and Geese, they're going to be on the back of all these hard runners. They're going to be on fresh mediums. They're going to have to pace the car through the field. But in my opinion, they're not getting these mediums to the end. Like, those mediums are going to fall off an absolute cliff. They're going to have to make another stop at some point. Whether it's for another set of mediums around lap 20, or maybe they can extend the mediums just a little bit longer and maybe chuck on the set softs towards the end. I don't know. Maybe there'll be another safety car that will determine the strategy for these guys. Of course, M125, Joe and Jay Luke will be hoping that there's going to be another safety car that will help them out later in this race. But the hard runners should be able to go to the end now perfectly fine. They do not want another safety car to come out. The medium runners and those that stayed out in their hards do want a safety car to come out at some point.
Yes, they're going to be praying for another safety car. And like you said, like the guys on who have just boxed for hards, they're going to be crossing everything that there isn't another safety car, because they are in a fantastic position. So Papa Squanch there, technically leading this race effectively. Then you've got Leroy, then Rich, and then Jess. So Joe, he is out in front. He's going to have to leg it now. So this is really... This race all depends on now, Mike, really, if there's going to be another safety car.
So this is what's going to be going through my head if I'm Joe, M125 and Jay Luke, and obviously Mason in behind. What's going through my head right now is, lads, we need to work together here. As for on a different strategy to the guys behind, we need to make a stop. We gotta make sure that we are not costing each other time. There's no point battling for a petty position right here, halfway distance in the race, when this is not the end game for us right now. They need to work together, they need a DRS to swap with each other, and they need to make sure that they are not hemorrhaging time left, right and centre, because Papa Squanch is going to have the tyre advantage, he's going to have the grip advantage, Leroy's going to have the exact same, Rich is going to have the exact same. This is where these guys in the top 5, the top 6 obviously including Jamie, on the 9 lap older hard tyres, need to cooperate and work together well.
Exactly that, Mike, exactly that. If these drivers have that mentality, they can make it work. But like you said, Mike, they start fighting each other and slowing each other down, and it ain't going to work, and all they're going to do is make life even easier for the guys who have 2 stopped. But, Mike, the safety car is about to come in. The drivers are warming their tyres up as they come round the last corner.
Yep, and we are waiting for Joe to go, and Joe has gone just before the turning point for the final corner. He has gone. He has got us back to a green flag racing once again. We are underway in lap 14 of 29. Joe leading the way, M125 in second, Jay Luke in third, JR Mason in fourth with Funky in fifth, Jamie in sixth, but he's got a very, very quick Haas directly behind him. Meanwhile, in behind, you're seeing Skrillex absolutely hounded immediately by Leroy on those fresh mediums. Leroy now up in the P8, and honestly, for the likes of Papa Squanch and Leroy, they're going to be hoping the likes of Skrillex, Jamie, and Funky are going to be a bit of a nuisance to the likes of Rich, Jess, and Matthias and co in behind. But look at this, Papa Squanch down the inside of Jamie. Job done into the chicane. The Haas moves up into P6, looking to make quick work of these older compound of hards in front of him.
Yeah, that was quite a crucial move from Papa Squanch now. He's got a lot more grip now with these fresher hard tyres, and he's really showing it as Eddie on the back of Funky ahead of him. Everyone's just staying in within DRS at this stage. Jess all over the back of Rich, really putting him under pressure at the minute. Rich being held up by Skrillex. Bit of a Skrillex train going on at the minute here.
Yeah, and a 3-second time penalty to boot there for Skrillex. Rich unable to find a move thus far. That's putting him under pressure from Jess in behind, as she was mentioning. And this is not what Rich needs. He's on the ERS. He's trying to burn. He's going to go for the outside for turn number 1. Has to back out. And that is just, in my opinion, Colin, that's a waste of ERS usage right there. But he's going to use it again to go down the inside through turn number 2. They're going to be side by side now through turn number 3 as we go on board with Jess. Jess going to be following Rich through. No losing me here today, mate, as Jess follows Rich through and will now have the DRS to get the overtake done on Rich down the long straight towards the break-in for turn number 6.
And Skrillex actually ended up in the wall. I think there was contact with Skrillex and Salo as we are 3 wide. Look at that.
Salo tries to send one all the way. Oh no, Salo there tried to stick his nose there on the inside of Jess, but there was just there's no gap there. You got to know when to yield the corner, I think, and Salo there at the backside at the last moment there, thankfully, or else it could have been an absolute calamity for the pair of them. And they will settle down for 11th and 12th for the time being. Up at the front, J. Luke has got back through on M125, so J. Luke now up into P2 in this race on the back of Joe. Meanwhile, you got Mason now, who has been put under pressure from Papa Squanch, and this is where it's going to be very interesting because, of course, Mason very quick around here. Obviously, we've seen it through the stint so far. We've seen it in qualifying. He's not going to be an easy car for Papa Squanch to get the move done on. Obviously, DRS is going to help Papa Squanch get the move done, but he's not going to be a difficult car to get rid of, is Mason. But now, the top 3 can DRS trigger each other. They just need to do it calmly and cool and calm. Oh, Mason loses the back end and goes into Papa Squanch on the exit of turn number 5, and that is not what Mason would want. I think the tyres are beginning to fall away from him, but Funky now up into P5. Leroy coming down the inside in towards turn number 6. He's going to have a look at Papa Squanch as well. Side by side, they're going to go. The Papa Squanch, the net race leader, and Leroy now into the net race lead, as he also has to make another pit stop at some point because those mediums are not going to get to the end. J. Luke, M125 and Joe working together. Look at that gap, 3 seconds, near enough 2.5 seconds now between Leroy and M125. Now, Cole, this is where I said they have to work together. They need to be in unison with each other, the top 3.
Yes, they seem to be doing that at the minute, the top 3, and it's showing it's working because there's a 1.8 second gap now between 3rd and 4th, although Leroy is showing great pace at the minute. As Mason runs wide in the last corner, fighting Matthias. Matthias just behind him. Funky now up into 6th place. So and Leroy, don't forget, Leroy has made his 2 stops, but he's on the medium tyre. Mike and I both agree we don't think he's going to make it to the end on them, so he's probably going to have to box. But Papa Squanch, he doesn't need a box, Mike. He is done with his pit stops, so he's in an awesome position at the minute.
Yeah, and likewise, as I mentioned earlier, with the top 3 needing to work together, I think Leroy and Papa Squanch might need to work together as well to try and counteract what's going on up ahead, because I mean, Leroy and Papa Squanch will have the grip and the pace in the corners because they are fresher tyres. It's just the natural order of things. Grip equals pace. Now, in terms of the straight line speed, that's where they're going to be hemorrhaging time. Leroy's tyres are going to fall off at some point, and he is going to begin to lose time to these guys up the front. It is 1.5 seconds, but if Leroy is going to try to go to the end, he's going to make things very difficult for Papa Squanch in behind.
Yes, he is. As we got a new race lead, J. Luke has overtaken Joe. He is now in the lead, but we have a Mason holding up a lot of cars behind him. You can see he's got a 2-second gap. Is he going to box? No, he stays out. But look at the train behind him. There's about, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cars, all hounding Mason. I think Mason's tyres are done, Mike.
Yeah, potentially. And I just had a little look at the gap to the leader. 8.3 the gap between Rich and J. Lucas. That's a virtual safety car deployed. Will it turn to a full course safety car? I don't think so, but J. Luke, Joe, and M125 are praying for it to turn to a full safety car.
Yes, I'm just trying to work out. I think that might have been... I see Matthias has got front wing damage. They're up in 7th place. I'm just trying to see. They're all pretty close together, so I don't know what the VSC was for. Maybe it was for debris. For Skrillex, yes, of course. So Skrillex out of the race, unfortunately. Just a 15 running now. But if that safety car stays out long enough for these top guys to pit, they're going to save a lot of time in the pit lane. They're about halfway around the track at the minute, I think. Oh, no, they're into Sector 3. So is this safety car virtual? And we are back racing, Mike, so that advantage is gone.
Yeah, we are going to be back to green flag racing as... here we go as Rich tries to get a move done on Mason. Not going to work. Jamie has left the session. I think he might have had a disconnection there, Jamie. So if we can get him back in ASAP, that would be most ideal. But Rich now losing out. He tried to get a move done on Mason, but Mason strongly defending, and that's allowed Jess to get the move done on Rich. And this is not what Rich needs, because every bit of time he's losing behind Mason here is the gap between himself and J. Luke. By the end, when J. Luke makes his second pit stop, it's going to be even smaller, and the grip advantage that J. Luke's going to have is going to be absolutely Herculean compared to what J. Luke will have.
Yeah, exactly that. Jess now trying to go around the outside of Mason. That's going to be a task, but she's got a great run now. She'll have the DRS, I believe. So, and look at Rich. It's going to be 3 wide. Mason covering the inside of it. They're not quite far enough alongside. Jess has a look down the inside.
Down the inside goes Jess, but Mason holds it around the outside. Jess tries to look for the better traction out of the chicane. She gets the better traction. Now running down in towards turn number 9. Jess flashed the red light. No ERS there. Here comes Rich. Rich to the inside. No, he's going to back out and going for the move on Jess. Jess tries to hold it around the outside on Mason. The battle for P8 in this race absolutely kicking off here. You got Mason, who is on an alternative strategy. Jess might have just tapped the rear end of Mason there as Mason loses the back end. Leroy into P3 as we see Joe and J. Luke into the pit lane. Now, Cole, this is where we're going to see just how close J. Luke and Joe are going to be to these guys in behind us. Jess now around the outside of turn number 1. Job done for Jess, and that is an important overtake there for Jess.
It is. Now Rich is going to be desperate to get this manoeuvre done, but Mason, he might have DRS on Jess, so Rich is going to try around the outside. That's going to be a brave manoeuvre, but Mason's going to get DRS, so it's going to be all about your ERS usage now. Mason's got 40%. Rich has got nearer 60. They're both using. Is Rich going to be able to get down the inside? He's pulling alongside of it. Is he going to have enough to outbrake Mason? Mason hangs it round the outside. Mason, his outbraking in that corner has been astonishing all race.
Yeah, but the better traction goes the way of Rich 500, and now Mason is going to have to settle down for P7 in this race. But Cole, look at the gap. Obviously, we got this train from Jess down to Cowboy in 10th. It's a 3-second gap then to Geeston behind. Salu and Mason side by side coming through the final sector into the stadium. Salu holds it around the outside, but no, it's going to be Mason that holds on to P7. But what this is going to do is allow J. Luke and Joe to really close up the gap on these guys. I was going to say as well, like in terms of that train, we are seeing the fact that J. Luke and Joe are not too far off the back of that train. You just saw Rich go through turn number 1 as J. Luke was coming through the final corner. That is the gap for the championship leader to his nearest challenger. Fresher tyres for J. Luke. He does have a 3-second time penalty, but he's got Joe right with him. And Joe also a name that is in the running for the championship. Let us not forget. And you got Jess just ahead of Rich as well, who is also in the running for the championship. So it's definitely looking a little bit spicy coming to the end of this race, Cole.
It is. This race could go at any stage now. It's going to be very important for these drivers now, though, Mike, not to pick up any time penalties. It's going to be crucial because the gaps are starting to close. So that 3 seconds that J. Luke has got really is going to be quite costly, because if he does overtake Rich, he's got to pull 3 seconds as well. He is on the fresher tyre, so he's going to have the pace, but he's at the moment still stuck behind Joe.
I think those two are going to be working together here to try and close in, because in that final sector, that gap is going to fly down to the likes of Cowboy and Catherine as Funky's into the pit lane. That releases Jess now into the final podium position, and Rich up into the net podium position due to Jess having a 3-second time penalty herself. Joe with the fastest lap of the race, so Joe absolutely flying, and that little notification right there, Rich would have seen it, not what he would have wanted.
No, that's definitely not what he would have wanted there. So what is the gap now? Let's have a look. So we got a gap of about 4 seconds to Catherine, then Cowboy 0.8 behind, Joe 1.5, and then
6 seconds.
J. Luke just it's not a lot, Mike, but there's not many laps to go.
There is not many laps to go, you are right there, Cole, but in terms of the grip advantage, Joe and J. Luke are going to have the grip advantage. It's the final sector where they're going to gain all their time, and they're going to be able to DRS trade with each other to close up, whereas right now, obviously, Jess, she might have to settle for P4 in this race, but she'll probably be asking team orders, Catherine, to do her best Sergio Perez impression and hold up Joe and J. Luke in behind.
Yeah, exactly that. It's going to be very difficult. Now, Jess is going to be very, very focused on Joe behind as well. She's going to be very, very conscious of that. I'm curious to know, Mike, like you said, is Catherine going to do a Perez? Is she going to hold up the likes of Joe behind her? And in doing so, hold up J. Luke as well?
We are going to have to see as we're on lap 23 of 29. Papa Squanch leads the way. Leroy is still doing well in second place. His tyres are a question of whether or not they will make it. We'll see 11 laps on those mediums right now. He is holding on to DRS with Papa Squanch, and in fact going for the race lead now is Leroy. This could be a big result for the Scuderia Ferrari here tonight, of course, with no Quinn. He needs to make sure that he's getting a good result here for the constructors. Rich, obviously, he's got a championship to think about. He knows that Joe and J. Luke are closing in, and the gap now, Cole, is around about 5 seconds between Joe and Rich, and that's going to be even less now because with DRS, Joe's going to climb up into P5. Here comes J. Luke following him through, and that is Catherine now. Unfortunately, not going to be able to do a Bottas or a Perez here in Abu Dhabi. It's going to have to settle down for P7, but now that gap is the gap to keep an eye on.
It certainly will be, Mike. Rich now, he is just sitting nicely in the DRS of Jess. Jess got that 3 second time penalty, so he knows that he can jump her on penalties, but he's got to be cautious. He's got to be aware. J. Luke is 4.6 seconds behind now, Mike. So he is catching him, and there's plenty of laps to go.
Yeah, of course. Rich now, obviously, if he does overtake Jess with DRS, he's not going to have DRS, and you're going to see him lose more time to the likes of Joe in behind. The gap is 3.9 seconds. J. Luke is being towed along for the ride as well. The gap, Rich, he's got the DRS, so he will pull away from Joe down that long straight, but it was only by about 2 tenths. You're going to see that gap fly down now through the chicane, and there it goes back to 3.9, 3.8. And then you're going to see Rich now go up into P3 in this race, getting moved down on Jess. And if Jess is going to be getting her elbows out versus Rich, that is really going to help the likes of J. Luke and Joe catch up.
It is. One thing that's impressed me, Mike, is look how many laps that Leroy's managing to do on those mediums. But look up where he is, Mike. He is right on the back of Papa Squanch. We didn't think that these tyres would last this long, but he's actually going for the victory here. This is brilliant from Leroy. His tyre wear usage is tremendous, but it must be low, Mike. He's got to be struggling with the tyres at least a little bit, but he is right on the back of Papa Squanch here, right in the DRS. Rich 8 seconds further back in third place as Guest gets a 3-second time penalty.
Honestly, I think this is testament to Leroy's what's called stint on these mediums, because he has not taken a huge amount of weight out of these tyres. He's been very calm and cautious in terms of the moves he's gone for, as well as making sure he doesn't light up the rear.
And he's sorry to interrupt, Mike, but he's now in the lead of this race. He has passed Papa Squanch. Leroy in the front with just a few laps to go. Can he keep it together, Mike? Can he make these tyres last another couple of laps?
It's going to be the thing called. Normally, if it's a one-stop race, you are in the pits around lap 12. So, of course, he is taking a few extra laps on top. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the closing stages. That gap now between J. Luke and Rich, 2.7 seconds. The gap now, Cole, is still coming down quite considerably.
Oh, it's getting very, very close. Don't forget, even though J. Luke's got this 3-second penalty, he did get 3 seconds removed a couple of races ago to deny Salo his first race victory. So, is that the case this time? Does J. Luke have an option of removing this penalty with the stewards? That we're going to have to wait and see. But, Mike, he is gaining on Rich at a hell of a rate.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course that I think will be a trend that will continue to the end. It's just going to be a case of, will he get to the back of him quick enough? That is going to be the case. Lap 26 of 29. Leroy still holds on to the race lead ahead of Papa Squanch. As I believe now Papa Squanch will get through on the second dose of DRS. Rich, though, sits in behind Jess, and I think Rich might be thinking about his ERS battery and saving a little bit up to make sure he's got the gap to defend. But one thing I want to point out as well, Cole, that gap between Papa Squanch and Jess is coming down a bit, and that's because Leroy is leading. So the tyres are falling away from Leroy, but it's a case of, are they going to fall away enough? And I don't think they will.
Oh, I don't think they will. I think that Papa Squanch is probably sitting... I'm just looking at Papa Squanch. I think he's got front wing damage. Yes, he does. His front right end plate is missing. So I don't know when that happened, but he has got a bit of damage on there. So that's not going to be very helpful for him. But he's doing okay at the minute. He's sticking with DRS. Now, Mike, is he just going to wait until the last lap of the race?
I don't know, but this is not going to help these two battling to try and catch up to Rich. Side-by-side action between Joe and J. Luke. And they have just lost themselves a second to the cars ahead, Cole.
Yeah, this is getting very, very, very edgy for these drivers. J. Luke, he's fighting with Joe and M125, so the gap has actually increased to Rich there, Mike, as Joe goes down the inside and is now past J. Luke. as Catherine. And look at M125 round the outside of J-Luke. What a manoeuvre that is.
Absolutely fantastic from M125 to get the move done on J-Luke, but J-Luke's going to try and come back at him, and he does, and he'll get that position back. But a nice, keeping it tight down the inside is M125. A little bit of a tap on the rear of J-Luke, but it's still side by side coming into the stadium section. And now, switch back there from M125. Is it going to pay out for him? Oh, this is so close here. J-Luke doing absolutely everything he can, because M125 is battling for position. They both have a 3-second time penalty. Catherine right now, looking at the back of this, is thinking, I'll have me 2 positions here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, she's going to be sitting there smiling to herself. But I think, I'm just going to double check, Mike. I think, yeah, M125 has got his second 3-second penalty. So he's now seconds worth of penalties. So that's not what the driver wanted. So that will please J-Luke no end. He'd be thanking his lucky stars with that. But Rich still up there in 4th place, right behind Jess.
Yeah, and now Rich has gone for the move, overtaking with DRS. Now Joe does not have anyone to DRS trade with. J-Luke, obviously battling with M125, has cost him a bit of time and ground. So now Joe is just going to have to sit back and wait. Leroy has overtaken Papa Squanch for the race lead on the penultimate lap. Cole, this is all going to come down to the DRS on the run down at turn number 9. Papa Squanch is in prime position here, but he does have that wing damage, which could hinder him in the final sector. It could open the door for Leroy. But we're about to come on to the final lap of the race. Is it going to be the Scuderia Ferrari? Is it going to be the American outfit, the Haas F1 team? Time will tell as we come on to the final lap of this race. The battle for the race win is now on. The battle for the podium, I think, has now died down. Joe is going to be looking to try and get himself ahead of Jess on her 3-second time penalty. But with DRS, Jess could hold on to maybe a P4 finish here. J-Luke and M125 are going to be losing out to Catherine. M125, though, could be losing out to a whole plethora of drivers further behind.
Yeah, and here we go now. Papa Squanch right behind Leroy. Is he going to have a go? He's looking around the outside. He's saving it. He's not having a fight yet. But he locks a brake, loses a bit of momentum, but gets a brilliant run on the second part of the chicane. And he's got all of his ERS to use. But is it going to be enough, Mike? Leroy trying to hold on, doesn't quite. Papa Squanch is through.
But this is where Leroy needs to hope that the wing damage on Papa Squanch hinders him a bit in the closing stages of this lap. But I think Papa Squanch has done that absolutely perfectly. Timed the overtake to perfection, got into the race lead at the right time, and back-to-back times it looks like in One Hub Racing he won here in P3, he's going to win here in P2. It's going to be Papa Squanch taking the top step of the podium ahead of Leroy in second place. Jess will cross the line in P3, but unfortunately she will concede that position to Rich. And will she drop down behind Joe? Yes, she does. So Joe up into P4, Catherine into P6.
Wow.
Yeah, Catherine up into P6, J-Luke P7, M125. Look at the gap between himself and Cowboy. That is a very minute gap between Cowboy and M125. Very lucky there for M125 as Funky there in P10. Matthias in P11. What could have been for Mason coming through in P12. Salu in P13. And then, of course, we got Geist and Jamie in 14th and 15th. And it looks like Jamie might be going for the fastest lap. Purple middle sector for Jamie. But he needs to make sure that he gets through on Geist. As Geist can allow him to get the fastest lap. Geist actually moves out the way. That's a nice little bit of respect there from Geist to Jamie, knowing that I mean, both of them are obviously outside the points in terms of scoring the meaningful points. But Jamie going for the fastest lap outside the top 10, maybe the fastest lap of the entire race. Coming through the final corner, will it be Jamie's fastest lap to the line? He'll come. It's not going to be the fastest lap of the race, but it might be the fastest lap outside the top 10, Cole.
Yes, so Jamie there should We'll have a look in a second, but he should have got a point, like you said, Mike, for the fastest lap outside the top 10. Got very unfortunate with the disconnect, which cost him a hell of a lot of time. But pretty certain, I will double check, but I think he got the fast lap, so at least he gets a point.
Well, it is Baba Squanch on the top step of the podium. Leroy, a fantastic effort from Leroy, but unfortunately not enough for the race win in the end. But let's run you through the order one more time. Papa Squanch takes the race win here in Abu Dhabi, ahead of Leroy in second place. Rich, the championship leader, extends his gap in P3, completing the podium. Joe in P4 with the fastest lap of the race, so an extra point there for Joe. P5 goes the way of Jess, with Catherine in 6th. Big points for the Red Bull Racing team. J. Luke in 7th place. What could have been for him? M125 in 8th. Cowboy in 9th. Funky in 10th. Matthias 11th. And Mason picking up the final point in 12th. Outside of the points paying positions was Salu, Jamie, and Geese. And our non-finishers were, of course, Skrillex, Rageman, and Trash Panda. And the fastest lap of the race outside of the top 10 was, in fact, Salu.
Oh, so Salo nicks it from Jamie. Salo having a bit of a disaster race, to be honest, after starting so well. Same as Mason. The safety car really did not help the likes of Salo, Mason, and a couple of the other drivers, but the pace from the top bunch, the safety car didn't help them, but it did. But they recovered very well, Mike. So, Mike, who is your driver of the day?
My driver of the day, obviously, I kind of have to, just because of the strategy, taking the mediums as long as he did and was within a whisker of taking the race win. For me, my driver of the day is Leroy. And the question that I would put to Leroy, obviously, congratulations on a very strong P2 finish. Did you think that the medium tyres would last long enough for you to be in the fight at the end for the race win?
Yeah, that's a really, really great nomination. That was one of mine. So mine's definitely going to have to go to Papa Squanch. A brilliant race win for Papa Squanch. Seems to be a bit of an Abu Dhabi specialist, Mike, having 1 year before. So my question for you, Papa Squanch, is did you really think that you had enough ERS left to pass him? Was the plan to pass him on the last lap so he couldn't attack you anywhere else? And how pleased are you to get another victory around Abu Dhabi?
Absolutely fantastic. Of course, both drivers very well deserved, not only to fight for the race win, but also in terms of the driver of the day nominations, both very well deserved drivers. But in terms of the championship call, that's a big result for Rich, and it brings him one step closer to the drivers championship. Now, obviously, with the remaining 2 races of the season, of course, next time out we will be heading to America as we head to Miami, round number 11. A very high risk circuit, obviously not much room for errors, not much room for mistakes, and a chance, the potential there is there for wet weather to come into effect around Miami. Cole, I think Miami is where the championship is won or lost.
I think so, Mike. That track is no other word for it. Treacherous. It is so easy to hit a wall, lose a front wing, or even lose a wheel. It's such a difficult track. I actually love the circuit. You've got that very awkward chicane as well towards the end of Sector 3 before the long back straight. That is so easy to get wrong. Another track as well, Mike, where penalties are going to be so easy to get. Another track where you're going to have to be absolutely perfectly precise to avoid penalties. But I think you're right. That race really is going to make the championship an absolute bonkers ending, because it is now all on J. Luke. It's basically bust or go for it. So I expect to see J-Luke having a monster of an evening.
Yeah, J-Luke definitely needs a huge performance at Miami, as does Joe, as does Jess. I need to hope that Rich has a absolute nightmare at Miami to even have a hope. What Rich needs to do is exactly what he's done here tonight. Drive a champion's drive. And that right there from Rich was a champion's drive. Cool, calm, and collected. Like, he didn't get flustered. He didn't buckle under the pressure towards the end when the medium runners were closing in on him. He just drove his race. He got to the line. He got himself a podium. He extended the gap. And that is exactly what Rich needed to do heading into the final 2 rounds of the championship. And of course, he could have a chance of sealing it in Miami. Of course, he came into tonight with a point gap of 21 points. As long as he has a point gap of 21 points going into the final round of Belgium, like, he would be crowned champion at Miami as long as he has a points gap greater than 21. But we're going to find out if he can seal it in Miami. I believe the constructors could also be sealed in Miami as well. I'm not sure if the constructors might have potentially been sealed already. We'll have to run the numbers on that. Maybe Mercedes have done enough, because of course Salu had a bit of a shocker today, so maybe Alpine did score enough points to keep the Constructors' Championship alive. We'll have to keep you up to date on that one. But if the Constructors' Championship is over, expect no friendly behaviour between the Mercedes. Elbows will be out, and there will be a fight going on between both of the Mercedes drivers. That is for sure. But Cole, that brings an end to, of course, the action here in P2. Of course, again, massive thank you to our sponsors and partners at, of course, Next Level Racing, Pure Sim Gear, to Vespertwin, to, of course, Sim Grid, and, of course, the Mental Health Foundation. In around about a half hour's time, 20 minutes, let's say, before the stream gets underway, it's P1. Where, of course, you'll be Jess and J. Cole taking you through the action of P1. Cole, what are we expecting from P1 later tonight?
Well, Craggy's got a very good lead in the championship, but can he keep it? Senna hot on his heels. Certainly not over yet, but Craggy's put himself into the best position possible. But Mike, we saw tonight, anything can happen where it just flips the race on its head. And let's hope we get another Welsh pole, Mike.
Well, it's definitely not coming from me, mate. So, good luck with that one. But, yeah, obviously, Craggy going into tonight's race in P1, he has a 32-point lead. As long as he has a gap of 40, I believe it's 43 points by the end of tonight, he would be crowned champion of P1. So the work is now on Senna to pick up a big result. Craggy, to my knowledge, does have to miss a race, if I remember correctly. So he definitely needs a big result here tonight, does Craggy. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in P1. But we will be back next week for round number 11 at Miami. I have been Michael Edwards. He has been Colin Mason. And we'll see you for round number 11 at the Miami Grand Prix. Until then, guys, it's goodbye from the pair of us.